our staff who's going to be live streaming the meeting for us. Hey, Julie.
Hey, everyone.
We have Brian Lanehart with Commonwealth. Hey, Brian.
Good evening.
It looks like Sonia's smiling. Hey, Sonia. Oh, and Victor Weeks.
Hello.
Hey, Victor, how are you, buddy?
Doing great, thank you.
Good, good, good. All right, so that's everybody. Oh, how are you, buddy? All right, so next on the agenda, DOE comments.
Yeah, so just some updates. Budget-wise, we're in continuing resolution through March 14th. We'll see if budget can get passed once the new administration comes in and gets settled. As far as progress at the plant, converter segmentation, we're at 212, and converters and storage at 206. Sampling at C400, focused on the areas north of 400, has resumed. They did all of the membrane interface probing before Christmas, took Christmas break, and we had bad weather, so we pushed mode for a week, so they just started back this week. The KRCE's out doing seismic study, and they actually started north of the plant up by the U landfill, and they'll work their way from north to south, focusing on the east side of the plant over there. So that's kicked off, and they're back in the field doing work following the break. The environmental baseline survey, which is kind of the phase 1 document for looking at a potential parcel transfer. We did get comments back from EPA on that, so we just got them this week, and we're starting to work those and look at those, and we'll be working on that. And then we submitted a remedial action work plan for the Northwest Plume on the 14th. We have a Tosca tour for January 29th. That Superfund side of the house, CERCLA will be there. Some of the folks on the phone will be there. And then our Tosca side of EPA will be there. So some of our, looking at some PCB transformers and things like that. So that's kind of what we've been doing and kind of what we have coming up. So
just just working on real estate transfer right now. We're doing a lot of work on the community's request for land, work with the easements. We got to make sure the easements line up and they're transferred with the property. So because you have power lines crisscrossing, so doing a lot of work on that. And just a general comment, just thanks to all the CAB members for coming. Really appreciate the CAB members to be coming to these meetings, because we're getting into some complicated stuff, and it'll be good for y'all to be up to speed for that, so you won't be like caught cold. So thank you all. And then we're working on a tour, orientation tour for the new CAB members, potential new CAB members, 1st of March. So we're anxious to get that going. Actually anxious for it to get warm for the tour. But thank you all again.
All right, we're going to give you guys a chance if you have questions for April or Buzz to ask those. But Buzz, you also have Science Bowl right around the corner, which is a chance for folks. Yeah.
Yeah, Science Bowl is, we have a high school Science Bowl comes up Friday, February the 7th. High school is the following week, following Friday, the 14th. So we've got 11 schools each, 18 teams. So some schools have 2 teams, which is pretty good. Actually, it's a little better than what we have in the past. But we pretty much have all the local schools represented, which is really good for us. That's kind of our market area. So it's good to let people know what we're doing. It's also good to get younger people exposed to a lot of people work at the plant that work at the Science Bowl, kind of hopefully get them thinking about, future jobs and getting education and coming back to work at the plant site or staying and working the plant site. Or if they don't go away, there's plenty of jobs too at the site. So it's a great opportunity and a lot of people involved in volunteering for that, and we appreciate everyone's help.
And if any of the CAB members want to volunteer, what's the process?
I will absolutely take you. So we'll have a job for you. So just let me know, send me an email or let me know at the meeting. And it'll start about 7:30 on that Friday. And we're usually done by 2 or 2:30. If you need to, a lot of the teams are done by noon. You stay and eat lunch, and if you need to break away, that's fine too. So.
Okay. Any questions from you guys on anything for April or Buzz? All right. We slide forward to liaison comments. Victor, anything you want to share with us tonight?
Nothing going on right now other than what April was talking about. We're working with DOE and KDEP on all those issues.
Perfect. Sonia, anything from the Kentucky? Oh, it shows you as unmuted, but we can't hear you, ma'am. And now she's muted. Okay, we'll work on that. Sonia, if we get the audio fixed, feel free to jump in at any point, okay? I say okay like you can answer. Sorry. Okay. So with that, we don't have any administrative issues for tonight's meeting, so we're gonna slide forward to the purpose for tonight, and that is, we're gonna talk about the 2023.
Brandon Marshall is our new employee.
Brandon Marshall, okay, from Sonia, Brandon Marshall. Welcome.
No,
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I probably should have said that.
So we're gonna talk about the 2023 annual site environmental report, right? So Mitchell Guthrie is with us tonight. He's with DOE. So let's take just a second and kind of put Mitchell being here in context, right? So mid to late 80s at most of the DOE sites that we interact with, like large, noticeable amounts of contaminations now, right? Groundwater issues started popping up, contaminated soil, and that's really when the EM program, as we know it, kind of took off, right? So it takes a few years for a federal program to ramp up. So that's mid to late 80s, by early 90s to mid 90s, we're starting to really hire the first round of folks, kind of young chemical engineers, all kinds of different folks, scientists to come in, hydrologists, geohydrologists that come in and understand, right? So if you figure from the 90s to about 2024, 2025, where we are, is roughly 35 years, which is about the lifespan of a person's career, right? And we realized about 8 to 10 years ago, there was going to be a major shift in employment at the Department of Energy's Environmental Management Program because all these folks were set to retire at about the same time. And it became a big issue for CAPS. We talked about it at national chairs meetings. We talked about ways to recruit new folks, to find folks like Reese who are in school. How do we get them engaged? How do we make this look like it's something that they might want to come and be a part of? We bring folks in. So we've seen the intern programs grow at the site. We've seen the outreach to local high schools grow, right? One of the other programs that started over the last couple of years is the DOE Pathways program. DOE's Pathways program is where they hire kids straight out of college and bring them in and say, we're going to kind of mentor you and show you how to go and take 18 months, maybe not quite that long, to get your feet, and we're going to transition you to a full-time federal employee quickly, right? Because a lot of times when you look at what's required to be a federal employee, you need, like a lot of jobs, you need a dozen years worth of experience. Well, you can't find that because those folks are already going other directions. So that being said, Mitchell came through the Pathways program. He is a kid that grew up in the Heath area, played ball at Heath, played ball at McCracken County High School, went to college here at the UK College of Engineering, right? Rolled over and went straight to the Pathways program. So the recommendations you guys have written, the push you have put for for April and her folks to say, hey, we want you to tell local kids that there's a chance for a job here, to show them they can get engaged, that they can chase a STEM career, and then come and Mitchell is the ideal candidate. Like, he is case number one for that, right?
He is the first one at
He is.
Paducah. Went through the program and is officially hired through the PPBO office.
Yeah.
So,
And we have talked about how important it is. We have April and Buzz being local folks. Yes, they're federal employees, but their interest is looking after and protecting the community that they grew up in, that they know, that they love, that choose to be here. Mitchell fits that category as well, right? So we're excited to have Mitchell. And if it helps Rodney, his mom and dad live right around the corner. They're in our neighborhood. Like, he is, seal of approval is there, right? So it's all you could ask for. So with that, this is Mitchell's first big public presentation, right? So he's done some traveling with DOE. He's gone to conferences. He's done stuff with the chamber, done stuff in DC, done all that. But this is his first get to present to the public, right? So we're gonna wear him out for the next. This is a training opportunity. So, all right. This is and we'll let you come up, Mitchell, if you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing now, the projects you're working on, and yeah. So, floor is yours, buddy.
All right, I'll stand for this one.
Yes.
So like Eric said, my name is Mitchell Guthrie. I graduated from University of Kentucky Paducah campus right over there in 2023. And I entered the DOE Pathway Program in August of 2023. And I'm currently a general engineer at the Paducah site. I work mainly with Swift and Staley as a project manager. And we are about to complete some new charging stations on site. And just working with them, making sure that infrastructure is taken care of, roads are paved, and any repair job that needs to be done. Inform Swift and Staley that we need to start doing something. And so, and now we can move on. So, I'm here like I said, I'm here tonight to present the annual site environmental report. All right, so every year, DOE prepares a report called the Annual Site Environmental Report, also known as the ACER. This report aims to deliver a detailed overview of the monitoring, sampling, and overall environmental activities occurring at the Paducah site. Every year, DOE releases this report to show how we are protecting the workforce, protecting the public, and protecting the environment through the monitoring and sampling efforts conducted at the Paducah site. So in 2023, more than 2,000 samples of air, sediment, and water were collected and analyzed. And through these samples, we are able to remediate the Paducah site and better protect the workforce, public, and environment. In addition to sampling, we also focused on primary contaminants, say that word, detected in groundwater plumes. These plumes at the Paducah site were stable and were decreasing in 2023. As we can see the slide works. Oh, it does. As we can see in these maps, the plumes have been decreasing or receding back since 2016, and the brighter yellow and darker yellows up at the top have been slowly receding back into the plant boundary since 2016. In addition to the groundwater modeling or monitoring, we also sample the water quality at the site. And these are sampled through outfalls all along the edge that lead into the Little Bayou Creek and Bayou Creek. These outfall samplings support the KPDES permits that ensure the water is well within the parameters before it reaches the creek and the river. And now the DOE continuously measures the external radiation around the Paducah site at 64 locations. And so we measure these through what they're called TLDs, and those are thermoluminescent dosimeters. And as and these peak areas around the map are cylinder yards. And this lower cylinder yard down here is the DUF6 cylinder yard. And you can see these monitors around the edge have higher than background readings, as well as this cylinder yard here, it has a higher than background reading. These higher than background readings are expected. These cylinder yards are full of cylinders that have uranium in them. They give off a lot of neutron activity, and these dosimeters are constantly picking up that activity, so they read as higher than background. You can also, no, you're fine. And you can see we also have cylinder yards here and here that do not have a higher than background reading. That's because these cylinder yards are either empty, have empty cylinders in them, or cylinders with just very little uranium in them. The dose summary. So one of the primary conclusions that comes from the ACER and the RAD sampling efforts is the dose summary. To put everything in perspective, the average American is exposed to about 620 millirem per year. A single whole body CT scan is 1,000 millirem per year. And the naturally occurring background radiation is 310 millirem per year. The Department of Energy has a 100 millirem dose limit to the public. At the Paducah site, we have a 5.8 millirem dose to the public, which the ACER calls the maximally exposed individual. Another comparison is the 3 one-way flights from DC to Seattle is about the equivalent of the dose that is the far reported doser site.
Wait, question. Go ahead, no, you go first. We may have the same question.
We may have the same question. Okay, where is that person located?
All right, so there are multiple different pathways a person can be exposed to radiation. You have, and these different individual pathways are combined into what I said, the maximally exposed individual, API. Those pathways are direct radiation, incidental ingestion of surface water, sediment, and atmospheric releases. So your direct radiation makes up the majority of that 5.8. It's at 5.6 millirem of the 5.8. And this pathway assumes that a member of the public visited accessible areas of the Paducah site where the potential exposure was highest for a total of 80 hours per year. And then the accidental ingestion of surface water accounts for about 1.2 or 0.12 millirem of the 5.8. And this calculation assumes an individual is swimming in Bayou Creek or Little Bayou Creek at most of 45 days in 2.6 hours. And then you have the sediment. The accidental ingestion of sediment accounts for 0.10 of that 5.8. And that assumes that an individual would wade across one creek location every other day during hunting season for about 104 days and ingest a small amount of sediment, about 100 milligrams per day. And then you have the atmospheric releases. It's about 0.003 millirem of the 5.8. To calculate that dose, they use a US EPA approved computer that's called the CAP88 PC computer program. And they use site-specific data as well as meteorological data from the Paducah site to estimate that dose. So that is where that 5.8 number comes from.
Having taken tours at various locations across the country, and sometimes in our tour, we are wearing dosimeters. Tourists at the Paducah plant, at least the public tours, people don't wear dosimeters. Is that because the radiation level is known to be low enough? We're not ingesting enough dirt, we're not walking across the creek enough times that there is no issue.
It might be better. A lot of times we'll have a tour dosimeter. So the guide will have that. But this is also an interesting point on the, I work at the DOE office. I go into some of the facilities, sometimes not a whole lot, but every year I wear a dosimeter. Every year I got my dosimeter return and it's 0. So I don't know you're more out and about.
Mine is always a 0.
Yeah. So it's
Okay, thank you.
pretty good. That's really that's conservative in my opinion.
Yeah, you're Robert.
Well, I'm not metric smart, so what's 100 millimeters, like in Houston, Denver, Florida,
You, 100 mil rim is basically, it's one rim, right? I'm correct on that. I will give a better explanation for this. Um,
So a RIM would be the unit they use to measure, like a radiation dosage, similar to an inch is a unit they use to measure length, or a pound is that you use to measure mass. So RIM would account for the amount of radiation that an object receives from another object. It's that transfer of is it ionizing material, right? And so that's it. So that so RIM is kind of the standard if you're in the physics as to what that unit is, right? And so what really matters is that the annual, just living in Western Kentucky, you go out in the sun, you microwaves, you eat bananas, you collect radiation from you go see your dentist, you occasionally have a x-ray there, you get an x-ray. If you go see the doctor, the average is about 310 millirem of radiation you would receive just from being alive and walking on the earth in Western Kentucky, right?
Yeah, but it's 620 if you are getting your dental, it's.
620, got
Yeah,
you.
look
On
at
average
average.
per person.
If you didn't do anything, you'd get 310.
All right, 610, sorry, thank you.
No,
No, that's it. And so 5.8 is the piece of that comes from the DOE site, right? And so the takeaway is it's fairly negligible, right? It's not, that's what we're hopefully trying to communicate. That.
and by comparison, what would be hazardous?
So 100 is the dose that,
It's based on time too.
yes.
yeah,
Time exposed.
yeah, how quickly you get it. That's what it is. It's a complicated formula. I'm sorry, what?
I mean, essentially, if we're at the plant, I mean, a criticality would be, have to take place, and, in our operations kind of that we have today, very unlikely. We still maintain double contingency in the event. We watch out for moderators and things like that. I would say that, let's say that one cylinder yard, if you were in there every day for like a month, you definitely you will have those, because those cylinders are full, or several, and so it's mostly neutrons. So like, to even go into that cylinder yard, you have to have a different dosimeter than the beta gamma dosimeters that we typically wear on site anyway. So, a lot of things we do at the plant, time distance shielding, those are all things to minimize dose to people. We have a LARA as low as reasonably acceptable, achievable. So we have a lot of different safety mechanisms built into everything we do. So, as Eric was saying, these numbers are minimal compared to, just go get an X-ray or something like that. You're getting more doing that than you would be in the scenarios that Mitchell talked about, what makes up that 5.8. So, as Buzz indicated, typically at the plant, most TLDs do come back zero. Whenever the guys and girls are working, if an event happens, let's say we opened up a system, and just due to the nature of the UF6, when air contacts it, that moisture in the air reacts with the UF6 and you get HF. Typically, if that event occurs, most of the time the employees are sent to medical for testing. And so, if they did receive uptake from an event like that, it will be captured through that medical monitoring, kind of after the event. So, usually in most of the scenarios that we have, another great, kind of what would be dangerous or harmful potentially would be if one of the cylinders in the cylinder yard was to leak, rupture, or something happen, right? So, and we got a lot of protocols in place that if that was the event, it'd be a lot of sheltering in place, a lot of different, activities. We drill on these things that can cause upset conditions. We have, the public address, the public warning to tell people, hey, we've got this event going on, please stay clear. And, so, I mean, even the 100 millirem is very conservative, and not being the kind of DOE dose limit to the public. And if the average person gets 620, then, these other things are pretty benign and minimal. You're exceeding your whole year if you get a single CAT scan. So, but
That's in a short period.
yeah, sure.
Usually during, like, if you ingest alpha or anything like that, it passes through your kidneys within the day. It's out your system.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's really no harm.
So according to Google, when,
That's what I did too.
with 100 milligrams per hour, because this is an annual dose, right? We're at 100 milligram
Yeah.
annual. 100 milligram per hour is considered a high dose if it's sustained for an extended period of time, probably multiple days on end at that level, 100 milligram per hour. And we're talking 100 milligram, per year, is the DOE dose. The Paducah site dose is 5.8 milligram per hour. As for, if you were asking for, Robert, what the, per year, sorry, thank you. Numbers, I'm making them up. I'm just kidding. The dose for an immediate danger, where if you're exposed like immediately, like it means April's having a bad day, is about 100,000 milligram per hour instantaneously is where you're like, now we've crossed this threshold that we're probably not coming back from. But that's the number. If that, if that puts something into context. So.
And are these statistics an improvement from last year or other years? Or is this like a sustained level?
Pretty steady. I would say we probably had a period where they were lower just after the plant shut down, and things were kind of transitioning from kind of the NRC world to the DOE world. So I would say probably they're pretty consistent, pretty stable about that number. I wouldn't say any significant figure changes, spikes or anything like that. Pretty close to this average, I would say.
I guess as we continue to ship cylinders too, that will lighten the dose.
Process them through the DUF 6 conversions, and yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay, so from time to time, notices of violation occur at the Paducah site, and in 2023, we had 2 notices of violations for total recoverable mercury at outfall 8, and a total suspended solids at outfall 15. So outfall 8 is right here, and outfall 15 is right up here. So the reason for the notice at outfall 8 was an HVAC cooling water was flushing residual mercury contamination down a storm sewer to outfall 8. The cooling water from this HVAC system was rerouted to the sanitary sewer system, and since this corrective action has been in place, the outfall has been in compliance with the permit limit for mercury. For outfall 15, The reason was found to be erosion around an oil control dam and the associated culverts. To correct this issue, the oil control dam was removed and a new rock check dam was installed. And since then, there have been no more exceedances since.
With this monitoring, is this monitoring happening 24/7, or is it every few weeks we go and check? How does monitoring work on these sites?
So it's different depending on what it is for and what it is. So for like the outfall monitoring, we do monthly discharge reports. So the sampling, let's say if we did get a NOV, depending on what it was for, you have resample time that you have to get into compliance, back into compliance within. But typically, the water is monthly discharge. We do monthly reports, we submit those. And then the TLDs, those are collected and read, I think, are they annually, I think, or quarterly? It's annually. So it just varies. Like the groundwater monitoring wells, they each all have sample strategy. There's an environmental monitoring plan that gets reviewed and approved that lays the whole strategy out. And then this is reporting that data from that environmental monitoring plan.
And we actually monitor the outfalls daily. We go out and do visuals, we look for oil, different things, and then we do also check the pH at outfall 6. And so we do visuals, and if we find anything out of the ordinary, we report it, and environmental would come out, check on it.
Good, thank you.
The MDES permit specifies that we monitor daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and that's how they do that component of that schedule.
Yes, and the data collected in 2023 is similar to the data collected in previous years and continues to show a reduction in contamination at the site. Okay, so the public can access this the ACER by visiting either energy.gov or at FRP's website. The ACER is also printed and distributed to community leaders, the CAB, and can be found at the McCracken County Library. In addition to our formal ACER, DOE has created a program to educate local high school students on our environmental program. This program is called the Student ACER. Using a previous ACER, students follow with this program and produce a summary report at the end. This year, DOE has extended the Student ACER program through the Murray State grant. Murray State will work closely with local high schools to produce the Student ACER, and this year Paducah was selected for this program.
What do they have to do to get selected? And they have,
If the, of course, Murray State's given a grant, and then they administer it. A lot of it depends on, they ask who's interested, and the school that, like in the past, it's been primarily Marshall County because they had an instructor that was interested in doing it. Because it takes a little more time for the educator to spend, and then they get some kind of stipend from the school system. So it depends heavily on what educator has additional time. That person either retired, they weren't available to do it, and so they asked Tillman to do it, and Tillman said, yeah, we'd like to do it, we've got teachers to do all that. So it's changed over to Tillman, which is kind of good because you've got another school that's involved in it too. So, and then what they do, the ACER reports are real thick. It's a very technical document, and the students really focus on writing it in just kind of plain language, like you're explaining it to their parents or a cohort. So it's a really good document. But the other thing too, besides just, it's really good for DOE because it's another way we can touch, our mission can touch students and they understand what's going on at the plant site. And also it's not only affects those students, it affects their parents too, because their parents are asking what they're working on, that sort of thing. So it's another outreach effort.
Are the students selected just by their interest, like it?
Yeah, yeah, like at the Tillman, when they ask who's interested, most times it is it's a class that's real good with some sort of STEM class, so the teachers know which classes are good for that kind of thing, so they try to keep it. Now, this group it's I don't know, it's about a dozen students. So when Marshall County did it, they had like 40 students. So Tillman's taking a different approach, and of course, it's the first year for doing it, so we'll see how it goes.
One of the teachers organized from the Innovation Hub, so I imagine that it's one of the CAD classes. The Innovation Hub, that's what we teach.
You're talking about,
The teacher that's in the wheelchair.
yeah, Jimmy went, yeah.
Yeah.
And did the tour, those students, I mean, it opened up their eyes, and the teachers, it opens up their eyes too, because these are, most all these people are hometown people, they've never really been exposed to that much, so it's been really good. Sorry, I'm
You're fine.
And like Buzz said, Murray State will be working with local high school students in order to help educate them about activities and potential career opportunities at the Paducah site. They will also develop material to help facilitate conversations about environmental remediation and D&D within the community and produce a summarized ACER in a non-technical manner for broader audiences. That's all I got.
All right, what questions do you have for Mitchell?
Can I make a comment on if you go back to the outfall, like to go back a couple. This was just cool. The outfalls, as you all may or may not know, that's basically how the site drains. Could be a ditch or that's how the water drains off the site. So there's monitoring points in those. But regarding property transfer, when you'll see the piece of property we want to transfer to the public, if you'll notice, it's kind of it goes along here, then it cuts in and goes on this other side and goes up. The reason why I check like that is because of this one outfall 13, because then that way we can be sure that there's no contaminants that have drained off the site. And that's why people say, well, why don't you just go on straight and cut it off before we get to that outfall? Stay above the line where any potential, it's all upstream of any potential contamination.
Questions?
Man, just a general question, Mitchell, first, thank you for taking your time tonight and finding out what the T was for me. That was, but you grew up in Heath. And you always thought about someday maybe working at the plant, or what brought you back?
I really did. When I was in elementary school, I would, on my way to Heath on the street, I'd drive past the plant every day. I would always just see people like from Grove moving back there, trucks moving around. I always thought like I wanted to go back there and see it. I never got the chance to see it running. But and then we got the opportunity when I was in college. We took a tour out for our class out to the plant, and then that reminded me of my kind of a goal. I kind of wanted to work out here again. So, and then I found this opportunity, applied, and I was able to get it. And it kind of ever since I was little, I kind of envisioned working out here and staying close to home. And my goal has worked out for me so far.
And if you heard Mitchell say he drove himself to elementary school, you're 17. It's a real fucking. That's not a problem at that point. Not a problem. What other questions do you have? Darla.
In the presentation, it says that the two NOVs were at 8 and 15.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any connection between the findings there, or the notice on those?
No, the 115 was due to like erosion from just rainwater causing erosion to erode that oil dam. And, so all it did was just remove it and replace the rock check. 8, it was, water from an HVAC system. And it just kind of, that outfall 8, just, the storm sewer drains to it.
So it doesn't.
15 was PSS, total suspended solids, and then, the other one was mercury levels.
Yeah, it's just a coincidence that they're next to each other.
Which is, completely changed.
All right, other questions? Yeah.
This one may be more for April or
Sure.
As we look at long-term.
Yeah.
Whatever that means anymore.
Mhm.
These monitoring sites, will these monitoring sites be forever sites?
No, so, as we clean up the site with this holistic strategy, with the demo debris and the soil excavation, part of that is a stormwater runoff strategy, right? So, we are still in the process of trying to look at what works best with some different models, but I think ultimately we'll probably have one discharge on the east and one on the west. And everything will drain to those. And preferably, we're looking at using the circle established outfall. So it'll be like outfall 1 on the west side, KO 1, and then the circle 1 on the east side where the northeast one goes. So it's kind of what we're looking at right now. But the goal would be to consolidate and change the runoff and the drainage such that everything's kind of going to one place here or there. And everything else will be cleaned up and then can be transferred. So just like Buzz was saying, most of the area's smooth, and so we have to, we stay clear of that and went below the outfall and then up across the other way. So, once we get active cleanup and, everything's in place, there will be a runoff strategy and we will be reducing the number there.
Thank you. Thanks, Ben. Thank you all.
All right, so why is this important? Right, what's the big deal? You guys ever cleaned out your garage, right? And it's mine doesn't look that bad till I start moving stuff around, and then all of a sudden my eyes are watering and I'm sneezing. And I'm like, what in the world's going on? Right? It's activity kind of stirs things up, right? It's just the nature, right? And we know that at some point in the future, these buildings where we did gaseous diffusion, these buildings where we did maintenance and cleaned equipment, these buildings where we pre-treated water and stuff, and then treated water those are all going to go down, right? At some point in time, they can't stay there forever. That activity level is going to kick up. And with that, typically, if you're not careful, the potential for additional contamination being looming, right? So April and her team, along with Victor and Sonia, are working on this plan to how do we stay in this sweet spot, this 5.8 range, even though there's going to be a lot more activity, a lot more potential for release to the public, right? And that's the challenge of all this, is making sure that we don't all of a sudden look up and April's our milliroom per year dose is 400. That's not an acceptable number, right? So they're going to put plans in place to put safety measures and precautions. You're probably going to see, not speaking for you, but we saw, unfortunately, more monitors went in place when they did demolition, right? They put a lot more out in place just to make sure things were safe. One of the reasons we have Mitchell come and talk, so you understand that there's a program in place that we monitor and we know what's going on from an environmental perspective. And when we start talking about tearing down buildings, you start talking about moving things to a waste cell. We're doing all this. People are going to get antsy, right? It happens. Right, so hopefully, through these discussions we're having, you guys can develop a sense of confidence and a sense of security about what's going on. And if nothing else, know where to go to ask questions when you do have. And they're going to pop up. And we can kind of continue this conversation, talk through it so that you understand that April and her folks are doing their best to keep things safe for everybody, right?
Yeah, Portsmouth has real-time air monitoring whenever they're, active doing demo or, OSWDF, their on-site waste disposal facility shipments, trucks and stuff. And I mean, anybody can go to the website and see what the current readings are. And we're planning to implement something very similar.
Yeah.
Is that part of like the air quality permit too?
It's more, it's just more for, like, even like our previous demos, we've done at the demo site air monitoring. We've had, cams there, we've had a bunch, it's typically just like what Eric was saying. It's not really air permit, it's more, health and safety and, kind of just ensuring that, you're staying below what your plan was. 'Cause I think when we did 340, we had local monitors and, they actually, when they were working on taking it down, there was an oven that had some asbestos bricks in it. And then, we saw it on the monitors, right? So then we had to stop and go deal with that separately because we couldn't continue to, so that it had to be dealt with. Yeah.
So what's Portsmouth like during their construction? Like, where are they sitting on their motors?
You know what the ratio number is?
They're 4.6, 4.7, something like that.
Close. I mean,
Right, so it's
around-
ballpark, it's right in the center. And so what they've done in Portsmouth, and from what I understand, they're looking at a lot of similar things. Like, there's the industry standards, and then Portsmouth is about 3 levels above that in their safety, right? So they covered everything, all the buildings in Gorilla Snot.
Yeah, there's, yes, it's a fixative you apply, so everything stays, stuck together. And then while you're tearing it down, a lot of, demo water, to keep dust suppression down and all those things. So there's a lot of different techniques and different applications that we apply so that that number in the air monitors stay where they're supposed to be.
So their real-time air monitors, you can go online and look for the Portsmouth site. Their largest hits were the 3 or 4 days after the wildfires in Canada last spring. Where
Oh, yeah.
had actually picked up the airflow from that, and it kind of, you see these spikes jump up, and that's what it was. It was the air particulates from the Canadian air fire, and then it almost goes completely away because of the glue type substance they cover everything with, and they spray it down while they're pulling stuff down, and it's a lot of water.
You were talking about that substance, after something has been torn down, I've done the tour before, and that, I don't know, if it's paint-like stuff, is that part of that, contains it?
Yeah, you're probably thinking of, we used to apply that fixative to the slabs that were left after your demo. And, we started having issues with flaking and things like that. So now we put down geotextile and put gravel on top of those. So now if you go out there, you won't see the green paint.
Yeah.
But that green paint is part of the application to fix everything, lock it in place. But I think, there was some.
I was just gonna say, as the various projects that we have going on, a lot of these measures are put in place. Using the water for the dust suppression. We do have the monitors that we use, the air monitors out there as well. And of course, our employees are wearing the PPE that's gonna, required to keep them safe and prevent them from being exposed to anything that's.
And they're all monitored.
And they are being monitored.
And they're monitored in and out.
Yeah.
They're monitored in and out. They're in medical programs depending on what they're being exposed to, or they may have television blood work throughout the year. So they are taking the steps to ensure that our employees are safe.
Because really the exposures we're talking about are local and primarily then occupational, as opposed to the people living in England. Because it's not going to carry that far.
Right. If it does, it's a big disaster. It's gonna be on the make it.
Yeah, and in Portsmouth, like the dirty secret is, and it's the same in Paducah, like the quote unquote like dirtiest spot. It's the the cylinder yards, right? Like it's what's given off, right? And access is very limited for everybody, even workers, right? And there's a plan in place. We're running everything through Duf 6, you guys know, to stabilize it, get it shipped off site, and like but when you get to this part, it's really not that much relative. Like it sounds scary, but it's not awful. The contaminations aren't nearly as bad. More of an industrial chemical kind of contaminants.
And we worked hard on those, you know, we switched from chlorine gas to sodium hypochlorite, which is just liquid bleach, because one of our accident scenarios was a 1-ton chlorine cylinder rupture or something like that, and that would result in, you know, off-site release potential. So switch that. I think now our main accident scenario is a Duf 6 cylinder potential, you know, release of that.
It's really more chemical.
It is. Yeah.
All right, so all this is important because we know at some point these buildings have to come down. Right? And the obvious starting point with pulling those buildings down is to see if you can build a waste cell on site, every year's April, a dump where you can.
No.
It's not like it's controlled, but a place where you can take your waste and you can store it in a permanent landfill, right?
No, for the record.
So that's what we're looking at.
Smack his hand.
Right, so part of looking at that, and what April is asking us to investigate is, if we were to go down that path, and it's still an if we were, where would be the right spot, right? And we've talked about a little bit how, think my wife wants to buy a house. Pricing and potential, like what kind of house we build, what we do, depends a lot on where she wants the house to go, right? So the lot matters. Very similar to building a waste cell, right? Where it's gonna go makes a big difference, especially when they start doing these extended, more in-depth proposals and cost analysis, right? So that's what we're gonna be looking at. Our schedule for those discussions are over here on the side. So it's a little hefty. We're gonna try to, 5:30, try to be out by 6:30, 7 at the latest, if it goes really long, if, you know, April's just on a heater and she just can't slow down talking, we're just asking questions and going. But the idea is about an hour. We just kind of, you know, eat the elephant one bite at a time as we go through this, right? We're gonna talk about everything from why we need to have this discussion to what's a waste cell look like, how's it built, you know, what goes into monitoring and checking, what goes into like building the WAC, which lets you define what you can place in the waste cell.
That's the waste acceptance criteria.
Yes.
Thank you.
And so you have all these different pieces of it that we're going to talk about. So at the end, we're going to look at, they're doing all kinds of land testing and stuff, soil testing, seismic testing. You guys are going to see all that data, and you're going to have an idea of what's feasible, so that you get to say, as a community, this is what's important to us. These are our preferences. And we feel really comfortable if you do this, or April, we have some real questions and we don't feel safe with this, and like it's got some problems.
That's why I said it's not, it's highly engineered.
Yes.
Storage.
So what we're looking at is February 6th, we're gonna do Thursday nights. So February 6th will be our first WDA meeting. Then February 20th, we're gonna get back together as this group, as full board. And then we're gonna do a budget and funding scenario for the upcoming year. We've got a new administration. Normally, under an ideal situation, the president will have rolled out his budget for the year. It never happens in an administration change. Like it's just it's very difficult to get everybody in place and get those numbers out, right? So it means we'll probably be in a continuing resolution, and that means there are all kinds of ramifications for the program. So April will talk us through what we know at that point in time, and probably have to come back and update us later on. So March 6th, we'll do meeting 2 on the WDA. March 20th, we'll do another meeting. April 3rd. April 3rd will be a public meeting. Right? So the way, right? April 17th, sorry.
March 20th.
Boy, I brutally killed this the other day. I even thought it was like I was having a
Yeah, you couldn't figure out
epileptic
what
fit.
month came after what.
March 20th will be a public meeting. So the way it works from a Federal Advisory Committee Act is that we're not supposed to talk about our recommendation, what we want to write, unless we're kind of open to the public to see this, right? So we will have a meeting where members of the public theoretically could show up and let you guys discuss what are some of the key components that you would like to see in a recommendation, what are your thoughts, where you want to go, what questions you have. It doesn't kind of have that kind of open government in the sunshine kind of. So April 17th is land transfer Pack Road Murray State Grant, right? So we want to make sure that we're in line with what the other key players in the community are thinking and saying, right? It doesn't help us if Molly and the group at the chamber are saying one thing and economic development is saying something else, the CAB is saying a third thing, right? Like, what's April supposed to do with that? Doesn't help us. So making sure everybody's kind of pushing in the same direction and moving the ball down the hill is a big deal. So all this is to get us to the target of May 15th is, as of right now, that will be a board meeting where hopefully we will have a recommendation where we could say to April, if you choose to go down this path with the waste cell, we think this is either the site we prefer, or at least these are the preferences that you make in the site. So that's kind of what we're shooting for. Questions from you guys? Good news is Haley's going to feed you. She's going to shoot you she's going to send all this out to you. Tomorrow will be an email, so don't worry about writing on it. Send it all out to you. We'll get it all squared away. We're going to do everything we can to keep the meeting short and on point. We're going to work with the executive committee to make sure that I do follow-up assessments, give you the right information, feel right, if we're going good, we need to tweak or alter this in any way and continually try to improve our process. DOE has really encouraged all our new prospective members, Robert and Marshall and Molly and Darla and Amina, to be engaged in all this, because even though May 15th is our target date, things slip in the federal government and dates fly. Like, it just happens, right? Like, it's just, especially under continuing resolution and new governor, new president. And so if we all of a sudden things slide from May to June, you guys will all be full board members at that point in time, and you'll be sitting at the table and you'll be voting. And we want to make sure you guys are set and ready to go in that event. So, questions? Cool. All right, we didn't have anyone sign up for public comment. Any last thoughts, comments from you guys? April, anything you want to?
I got nothing.
Mitchell, you did great.
Thank you.
So not only have I known Mitchell since he was in my wife's class, he's friends with my daughter and all this, but his family has a camper at the lake just right around the corner from us, right? And so I bumped into him and I was like, hey man, what are you doing? He's like, with DOE. I said, yeah, I mean with DOE. He's like, yeah, like I've got an interview with him. I'm like, where are you gonna do it? He's like, get back to camper. I'm like, awesome. So I'm gonna call April Lab right now. So he's got shorts and his t-shirt on, or his shirt on his tie. He's like,
Jeremy said, are you a camper?
yeah, he's one of us. So that's awesome. You did great today. Thank you. All right, anything else? Well, if you have the gavel, I'll let you get it. Man, all right, thank you guys. Hopefully we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah.